Infrastructure Task Force Committee. Can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Angeli?
Here.
Mr. Grabsky? Mr. LeBrie?
Here.
Mr. Ladd?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Partington? Mr. Malters? Mr. Zillman?
Here.
And Chair Romano.
Here. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Before we approve the agenda, can I suggest that we add to the agenda if it's appropriate? Walter Roosevelt's not here to advise me, but we need to talk about our summer schedule. And traditionally, we cancel the July and August meetings. Can we add that to the agenda? Would that be okay? All right. Having added that to the agenda, can I get an approval of the agenda? A motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Second, anyone?
Second.
Second, Ralph. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Moving along. Approval of the previous minute meetings. Now, due to, complications and crush of business, the minutes were not distributed until late. I would probably, I personally would support a motion to delay them until the next meeting unless other people feel that they had enough time to look at
Did
them.
anybody not get to read them?
I didn't get to read it.
Okay, I
Some
need to
meetings.
delay.
Okay, Jackie moves to delay.
Second.
And James seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Starting on our agenda, first item, big item, top 10 capital projects and the FY '23 CIP priorities. Okay. This is something that is very timely, and if we're going to make any comments about it, we gotta make them in a reasonable amount of time, because as Michael knows, we're starting the process in the budget already. So if there's any comments we want to make about the top 10 projects or other projects that are not on the top 10 but we think should be, now would be the time to make it.
Is anybody on this committee also on budget advisory?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yeah. Didn't you just recently have a budget advisory workshop?
A joint meeting tomorrow.
A joint meeting tomorrow, okay. What are you guys gonna focus on tomorrow?
So, well, I mean, yeah, it's inevitably we're talking about whether or not there's a millage increase, really.
We support that.
Yeah, I mean, we want to explore, first off, what the needs are, and then hopefully we'll look and see if, what else could we do, we did have a millage rate increase, so.
Have the budget staff given you any indication of what the status of the incoming money looks like already for next year?
Yeah, and we've heard each department, and they've talked about their ask.
Their
Yeah,
asks.
so we've gone through that process already.
Okay, so what is your ask? What is Alan's ask? Is that, if that's the way you want to start, or shall I just, I think you've prepared something, so why don't I just defer to you?
Okay, so at this point in the budget process, I think it's very important to recognize that we have not presented our budget to the city manager yet. So it's premature for me to really be talking too much about what our asks are. But in general, what we are looking for is on the operational side to maintain what we have and some increases where appropriate in program management, in things that we have to do to support the consent order. And most importantly, on the water and wastewater side, to look at an increasing cybersecurity threat. So we are very concerned about making sure that our technology stays current to deal with that. And I do have on this listing here, you'll see there is a request that we have put in for a information technologies, I'm trying to remember the exact name of it, senior systems engineer, but really it's an IT person that will work for our department to specifically look at our IT systems, our SCADA systems, to from a cybersecurity perspective. That's extremely important. With all of our pump stations, they are all on a SCADA system. We have 176 pump stations that all electronically talk to us, and the whole water plant, the meters, and everything depends on being able to communicate. And so we're very concerned about increasing our level of protection from cyber threats.
Okay, well, that would also apply to hurricanes too. I mean, if the hurricane knocked out internet, you would also be.
Well, yes, we have people already who deal from a hardware perspective. This is from people who are able to cybersecurity, hacking into it so that it looks like the pump is running correctly, but meanwhile the pump is getting ready to implode because they've changed the commands that are going to it. So, and that is a very real threat that they can go in and from a cybersecurity aspect and change the operating parameters of it, change the way we're monitoring so that we don't have the right visualization of what is happening in our systems. Very important that we have a controlled system, and it's all about the firewalls and the other IT security measures that are in place. And probably have to have our IT director here to explain how that all works. I just know it is important, and that, like I said, we have people who know how to put the system in place, but they're not cybersecurity people that can make sure it has the right firewalls and other protective measures in place. So that is on our listing of the top 10.
Is that a consultant or is that a person you're looking for?
It is a full-time
A
person,
person.
yes.
Have we had any issues like that, Claude? Somebody getting through the firewall for any reason?
Not that I am aware of,
Okay.
but it is, there's been an increasing amount of people phishing and attacking government networks. And so it's not just within the infrastructure world, it's happening in the financial world.
Right.
Small governments in particular are very vulnerable because they don't have the IT backbone of the larger cities.
So,
Any other municipalities in this area or that have experienced that? I know you're saying nothing with Fort Lauderdale, but other municipalities, have they experienced such things or?
I have not heard of anybody in this part of Florida having that.
But other cities too, like Pompano Beach, they're doing the same thing because, yeah, they're getting a lot of the.
Because I was gonna say, if you found some incidences, then you could probably, focus on those types of situations, to avoid them
So that is one of the items that we do have on here. What we tried to do is go back to those guiding principles that we talked to you before about, and I have on the top here, A through I, which was what we think are areas that should cause us to prioritize one project over another, knowing that we have more than 600 projects that are in the system right now that are either partially funded or fully funded, partially funded, or on the list to be funded. And what we tried to do is go through and identify the ones that will be on our list within the CIP programs to be prioritized. Within the general fund, there's two projects that we're highlighting. The first one is the Southeast 13th Street Bridge over Cerro Gordo River. And that one is it's an older bridge. It is functionally obsolete. It is the #1 bridge on our unfunded list to be for replacement.
Is it Rio Vista? Southeast 13th Street?
Gordo River. I'm not sure what Gordo River, but that's the name of the bridge. We can get an exact
I'm trying to
information for
think
it.
of what it is. It's gotta be Rio Vista.
Yeah.
But it's one of the small ones that goes out, it's a single point of access going into one of the islands. So if that bridge fails,
Yeah,
That's Lauderdale Harbors, yeah.
Lauderdale?
Lauderdale Harbors, right.
right, so if that bridge ever does fail, there's no way for those people to get in or out. So that one is our priority request for bridge replacements. It's in our budget for this year. It's also one of the ones that we're pushing in other means to try and get funding for as well. But
Can I just ask a question, just
Yes.
for my own knowledge? How did you determine that bridge was ready to fail?
because FDOT inspects the bridges
Uh-huh,
on a annual basis, and we get reports from them. So we know what the condition of them are, if they need to have repairs done.
okay,
And we have several bridges that are identified as functionally obsolete. They're just old, they don't have the weight capacity.
is this the only one you're doing, this next budget?
No, we're trying to do more, but this is our #1 priority within bridges.
Okay,
Okay, we have 5 that we have recommended for funding if it becomes available, but this is our #1 bridge.
because the people need access.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
okay.
just based on the rating and our bridge master plan, this is one that we are pushing for most to get funding to get into the replacement cycle.
Okay, thanks.
So this bridge isn't in any budget, this bridge has no funding yet in any of the CIPs, because we're starting in '23 on this one?
Yeah, correct.
All right,
Okay, I didn't wanna give you projects that are already funded.
Okay,
You know, you don't need to fight for funding for something that we already have the money for, we just need to get to work. So this is the
Understood.
first one on the unfunded category that we are trying to fight for funding for this next fiscal year.
3 different amounts.
because they
Over 3
funded
years.
over 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This would have been one of the bridges that we would have loved to have had the surtax people pick up until the surtax people decided that they weren't doing this anymore,
Well, we do have two bridges that we're already trying to work.
before
with.
they made the change in their policy.
But, yeah,
Apropos what we talked about last week,
yeah,
or last month.
And this is what, if, and this is probably more with Ben Rogers and how they're dealing with the surtax laws, he deals more with the from a policy point of view. But this one is one that we are also trying to see if we can push in and get funding from that as well. Also looking at other, opportunities from either the state, you know, there's, different infrastructure, funding pots that are out there, so we're trying to get funding from those ways as well.
Well, putting it into the FY 23 does not preclude our options of going for funding in other ways, does it? Of
No,
course
it
not.
does, if we get funding from another pot, what it does is it will free up this
Match.
money either to provide the match or to move the money onto one of those second or the third priority bridges.
So this is single point of access.
Yes.
Okay. All right, you continue down the list.
Okay, the next one actually is a project we've been talking with the Parks Department on. There's a number of streets that have poor lighting or no lighting on them that are high, traffic areas. And they've had, and I don't have the backup in here, but they, have a high rate of accidents that are occurring due to the streetlights. So Parks, as part of their, streetlight master plan, identified, a little under $5 million of streets that they really want to go in, upgrade the existing lighting and put in additional lighting to improve for public safety. And
What kind of streets are these? Obviously,
well-
these are like major streets, not
And
neighborhood.
and also, why is it Parks Department? Why is Parks Department doing streets?
because the Parks Department is responsible for the maintenance of the right-of-ways when it comes to the vegetation and the street lighting. So the
Okay.
street lighting falls under the Parks Department. We work with them on it. But, so the corridors that this one is,
So strange.
a small segment of Las Olas Boulevard, which is at 155 nighttime crashes.
Whereabouts on Las Olas Boulevard?
I don't have the boundaries on it.
Okay,
Northeast Fourth Ave had 86 nighttime crashes. Riverland Road neighborhood, 139 nighttime crashes.
I know
Flagler
that stretch
Street,
of road, that's terrible.
Flagler Village area, 35 nighttime crashes, and Himmershey area, 97 nighttime crashes. So they've gone through and evaluated the city based on where a lot of crashes have occurred and tried to put a program in to improve or put in additional lighting to address public safety.
So this is gonna be a joint request from Parks and Public Works.
Public Works is it's general funding, we are fully supporting it, and when it goes into construction, we'll work with them on the project management of it to see the lighting go in.
Any questions?
So I'm not clear, who's getting the money? It's coming from general
It
fund?
will come from the general fund, it will go to the parks.
It will go to
department.
parks, okay.
Yes.
They let the contracts, they manage the contracts and you help them.
Yes, but we have a project manager over there who works for Parks, right now it's Tom Green. So
So Public Works has a project manager over in Parks.
it will be a Parks project, but we will have a project manager working to oversee it.
Okay, we're not getting into those kinds of things. Next on our list.
Okay, the next one is the Saltwater Program. We didn't want to put in a lot of the big neighborhood CIP projects because those are already on auto track with the bond. But the one thing that we do want to do is when we're looking at these smaller projects, the ones that are responsive to Q alerts, when you have small flooding problems, we get 1.2 million a year. We have a 3-year backlog in known places that we have to make repairs. So we need to start increasing the funding for that. And so, right now,
Makes sense.
we're trying to move up to 1.5 million, but, as I said, we've got a 3-year list of projects already identified that we could move forward on, so that's definitely one that we can make a lot of improvements, and you all know where there's small areas where we have flooding, they're not the big CIP projects, but, this is the pool that we do all those small repairs from.
And when you're trying to do small repairs, are you talking about installing French
for want of a better term, French drain, or are we talking about
This can be,
coming in and, you know, those
it
French
it
drains
can
wear
be
out, they have to be up.
infiltration trench, it could be a catch basin, it could be taking a 10-inch pipe and expanding it to a 15-inch pipe. Usually they're $50,000 to $100,000 projects that we do,
Okay,
but,
so-
and it could be smaller, but it's under the CIP threshold, and we're able to go in from an operational point of view using an annual contractor and make pinpoint repairs.
Are you guys all after DOT about the one on 4th Street and Federal?
If it's DOT, I know we would be talking to them, I'm not,
Northeast 4th Street and Federal by the 7-Eleven there?
you know, that
That's a
one.
bad puddle. I mean, that if we get good rain,
7-Eleven and
4th Street by Fresh Market, just south of Fresh Market, there's a bad puddle on northbound Federal.
Oh, yes, I was there the other day.
It's really, it's not
right on
safe.
Federal, right there on that corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I know is
On the
It's
east
a gas
corner.
station, right?
7-Eleven and
7-Eleven.
Kinko's. But it's dangerous. It goes out almost to the next second lane so that people are swerving to not hit the puddle and.
I mean, I can tell you, it's 3 of them in Harbordale where it's obviously catch
But this
basins
is
are not.
federal,
no,
so
I
it's
understand.
DOT, so it's.
That we can have our folks talk to FDOT and see if they're aware of it, and
So that this funding wouldn't help that situation.
it wouldn't, but we have, I believe, 65 to 70 other areas like that on city streets that this would go to fix that exact same type of problem.
Okay,
I
yes,
have a
Jeff?
question.
Yes.
The day of the Air and Sea Show, we had that deluge of rain, and I've never seen what I saw on A1A and Sunrise Boulevard. I've got pictures of it. The depth of the water was unbelievable. It was the whole street, up on the sidewalk. Could you tell me what's going on with that? It's the most severe puddling I've seen in
A1A
years.
and where?
A1A and Sunrise, 9th
So
Street.
that would be an FDOT.
Well, are you guys communicating to them? Because it's a disaster.
They just don't have you get one of those rains, they just don't have the capacity.
I know, but it has to be fixed by somebody. Are we talking to them, or can we start that conversation? Because it's bad.
Yeah,
I'll show you the
I've experienced
photos.
the same thing
So
with
can
the
you
state
send me
on
those?
federal
I will,
highway.
it's
Send me
unbelievable.
those.
You can contact the state and they'll get their pumping trucks, they got a construction.
Well, the state didn't do that. The city ended up by 1 o'clock coming out and pumping. I'm thinking, by 1 o'clock? I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah, well, that's the state.
But on a road like that also, you're not gonna solve the problem with trucks. You might get a little bit of water, but at 1,000 gallons at a time, it'll take many, many trips to really make a dent in the amount
Well,
of flooding.
then I think the state needs to fix it.
What I meant by pumping is pumping out the debris that's accumulated. We had the same
Right.
thing up on, near 62nd Street north of, near the hospital. And it just, we even found an undercarriage of a vehicle inside that was blocking. So they need not just to pump the water, they need to pump out the debris in the system itself. And that's usually,
That's if you're lucky.
That's
If
if
you're lucky,
you're
that's
lucky.
what's wrong with it.
yeah, if you're lucky, right.
So
I'll set
FDOT,
something up with DOT.
so the storm drains in the streets, okay? The local streets, it's ours. In the county streets, it's ours too?
It could be the county.
Okay.
It probably is the county in most streets.
And some of them are the states,
And then on the state roads, it's typically an FDOT system,
okay?
but there may be connections between them, or there may be an overlapping system in the areas. It gets complex when you have multiple roads crossing over each other as to whose jurisdiction it is at.
My feeling is the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we've got to alert them to the fact that it's got to be fixed.
Exactly.
If we're not responsible and they are, I mean,
How do we effectuate that? I mean, him making a phone,
Well, I
Alan
mean-
making a phone call is one thing, but that might not do the trick. There
well,
might
there
have
has
to
to
be
be a
other things.
mechanism.
Well, I used, I went up to the top a little bit with the commissioner.
Yeah,
And I just told them that this has been a repeated problem. We've tried to hit their local office, and it's still a problem. And what they did was go out, what you're thinking, just pump out and not bother to go deeper into it and clean out the debris. And once they cleaned out the debris, it's been pretty good, but it's just amazing how trashy some people are throwing stuff, and it all accumulates inside the storm drain structure and clogs it
Yeah,
up.
we'll have to look at the structure there, see where it goes and all
Right.
that, I don't know.
Just, we can go past this, not spend too much time, but the majority, a large majority of the water was on the beach side of the street, right? But as you progressed in front of, what's that guy's name? He owns that bar, the Parrot. I mean, the water was all the way up over the sidewalk in front of his place. I was just shocked at it.
Well, if the system
I don't
can't
have
take
that
it, it can't
picture.
take it.
Pardon me?
If the system can't take it, it can't take it. I mean,
Right, but don't you think the state should do something?
Of course.
But
That's
part of it
all.
also is particularly in areas like that, where it's influenced by sea level. And if you don't, it's a gravity system, if the water's too high on the ocean, it's
ain't
gonna
going
just sit on the road because it has no place to go. And that's the much
So do you think
larger
it's fixable or no?
It can be fixable, but you might need a pump station. or
It
something.
may end up getting to a pump station.
And that would be their
we will-
responsibility, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just think we
Do they
should
do-
try to
do-
work towards a solution.
Do they ever do wells, or is it always pumping from DOT?
It can be wells too, but,
But the sea level rise negates the wells.
well, you have to drill
You
the
have to
wells
drill
really
way,
deep
way
to a
down.
cavern where
Go
it's,
down 110 feet to the
And it'll go
aquifer.
down.
It's actually a wonderful thing, because you're.
Yeah, but do they let contaminated
No,
stormwater
no,
into the
you have-
aquifer?
You take the first inch and it goes into a,
Yeah.
into
And
a-
then they let it go
And then
in.
it goes into the aquifer, which replenishes the aquifer,
Which is a good thing.
which is a good thing.
Okay, all right, so,
I have
but
one-
you know, yes, James,
This is a question regarding stormwater to Alan.
please.
Okay, Alan, these smaller projects, does that include some of those, like fixing those valves along Poinsettia Drive?
You mean like one-way tidal valves? We do have a CIP project that deals specifically with that, but typically we would do it in a different pot than this one. This one, only because we have dedicated funding for a tidal valve program.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
So just the question, one more question for me on that. I was not aware that we had a special little pot of money for these projects, and I have a neighborhood full of these special large puddle projects. Is there a list of projects and how neighborhoods can get on the list
Yeah, all these
for
ABCDs.
fixing those projects?
There is a list,
A list.
and the way that you get on it is by getting into the Q alert system, and as we investigate it, if it's something we can deal with from an operational point of view, like cleaning out the system or doing a very minor, our operation folks can go in and do that, adjusting a catch basin.
Mhm.
But once you get into that $50,000 to $100,000 range, that's when we tend to need a contractor to get involved, and that's what this funding would be for. And then once you get over 100,000, you start getting into the CIP range,
Okay,
and that's when we're submitting projects 5 years in the future.
I got it. Now I understand. Thank you very much. So I know what to tell people when they complain about the puddles.
And
A Q
that's
alert.
why it's so important, if people have problems, they call the Q alert
Mhm.
system, and that creates the record of it, because that's what we use to create these projects and put them in.
We'll find the link.
We found out in Imperial Point, for example, that they were not exfiltration trench type of storm drain systems, but in fact, they were closed systems. They were just a holding tank. And so we had talked about that before, and the city's probably gonna schedule them in a few years to not retrofit, but replace them, I guess, in their entirety with the appropriate drainage lines so they could participate.
It's a lot of work.
I have one more question.
Oh, yes, Jen.
I like to retrofit them, but.
One more question.
So, do anybody here on the board know what Q alert is? Because I sure don't. I'm pretty active. What's a Q alert?
The
And how do you
Q
make
alert-
one?
if you have a problem in the city, you call the customer support center, the 828-8000 number, and say, I have a problem. And whether it's trash pickup, a pothole in the road, a flooding problem,
828-8000 or 5000?
8,000.
8,000.
Okay.
And the Q
Amazing.
alert system is the system that the entire city uses to create a record of a customer complaint and then to see it carried through to be repaired. And in this case, it can
Isn't
be,
it funny that none of us that are very active and on many
Well,
committees
it's because you always just
know?
call it commissioner.
Actually, I thought it was on Lauderdale.
Yeah, Jackie, he's
So it's not
Yes.
Lauderdale.
Lauderdale is the bigger system, the Q alert is the program within that sends us the complaints.
So you don't go on the Lauderdale alert, app and make the complaint, you make a phone call and make a complaint?
You can do it through the Lauderdale on the app, you can do it by calling the customer service line. All of those venues collect the complaints and puts it into the Q alert system, which is the task order system that we use to dispatch crews. So
Okay.
if there's a flooding problem that we need, or a pothole that we need to send a crew to go and patch, it goes into the Q alert system and then it's assigned out to a crew.
Yeah, because I've used the Lauderdale to report potholes, and I swear within a week the potholes were filled.
Yes, and what they do is they will assign you a number for it, and it's a Q alert number.
So
And
these are
that's
people.
how we track it and assign it to the crew to go out and do the repairs. On the bigger projects, we track it and then it gets, it progresses through different levels of review to determine what needs to be repaired and then the level of effort, and hopefully to find funding and get it repaired or get into a CIP program.
Just real quick, and then we move on. What are you supposed to use that Q alert for? Potholes and flooding and what else?
Everything.
Whatever.
Okay,
If they
everything.
don't pick up your trash and you call the customer service center,
Okay, good.
it will become a Q alert that we,
What's the Q stand for?
I have no idea. It's been a Q alert since.
UE.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much,
So you now
Alan.
know your place in line.
Yeah.
So,
You're 110
Lisa,
on the
the
list
three-year
of
backlog of
3,000.
projects, you actually have a list of these projects?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of, you just can't do them all at once, right? That's why it's
It's-
backed up.
Yes, yeah, it's a matter of,
Safety.
$1.2 million and $5-6 million worth of work that we've already identified.
But what I mean, so if there were more funding, then the backlog wouldn't be as long, you're saying?
Yes.
It wouldn't be a 3-year, it could be a year and a half.
It could be.
It's not just because you don't have the manpower to
Well-
employ, you know.
Manpower is not holding us back on it right now. It really is, it's the funding piece on it. But you know, within the stormwater fund, it's a utility fund.
Yeah.
So the only way you can increase the funding on that means you're decreasing in one of the other areas.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off.
So we don't use enterprise funds for this, this comes out of the city budget.
No, this one is a specific enterprise fund that we're talking about, the stormwater fund.
Stormwater fund.
So the only way that you can increase the funding in this
That's
is
right, the numbers.
by we either take in more income through the stormwater utility billing, or we decrease funding in one of the other areas in order to increase funding here. And we think that in this year's budget, we can increase it by about $300,000.
But generally, this is the lowest priority between this and the sewers.
Yes, but it's separate funds, so we can't use stormwater or water and sewer funds to make up for shortages in the stormwater program. We have to keep them separate and we manage them separately.
But primarily, you integrate safety in that equation in determining which ones get repaired the quickest. In other words, if you've got a small pothole and it's just irritation versus something that could be a traffic accident, you obviously
Yes.
use
And that's
discretion in that regard.
Right, a pothole may sit there for a month waiting to get repaired because we have more urgent things that we have to take care of that are damaging vehicles, putting people at risk. And those we try and take care of as soon as possible.
Okay.
Right.
All right,
Okay,
so we already talked about the cybersecurity, which I guess everybody needs online. So let's go into the force main replacement and why, okay, is this a new force main that we hadn't contemplated previously?
This is one that is on the program, high risk, that we are planning to. We started funding it with $3 million, which is to start the design portion on it. But the total project's about $16 million, so that, this one is, again, we've replaced more than 20% of the force mains in the city. I don't remember the exact number. And this is one of the ones that we have identified to replace as well.
Is this one of the ones that are of high risk and Hazen and Sawyer?
Yes.
Oh, there you go, high risk.
And the letters at the end of it tie back to the guiding principles and why we identified these as priorities. We have many, many more, but the force main replacement is extremely important to us. The small water main improvements, we've had a lot of issues in this neighborhood where low water pressure, older pipes, so we want to replace that one. Tarpon River A11 is one of our priority I&I projects to go in and do the rehab. We have a very high amount of pump run times due to I&I, so we want to go in and line the pipes and rehab those. And then if you go on the backside, you also have the Coral Ridge Country Club Estates. This one is just starting, and you can see there's a funding trail that goes over the next 3 years beyond that. Just basically because of its size and complexity of it. And the last one on this portion is the Triplex pumping station rehab. This is 9 different pump stations that we are doing the design on this year to rehabilitate and upgrade them. And the $12 million is to actually go in and do the construction portion of those projects. So that
Of the 9.
it takes 9 pump stations that are running very high run times, are very old, need to be updated, and we'll get them modernized.
Okey dokey.
And then the last one on here, the affluent 54-inch force main. This is a single point of failure associated with the consent order that connects GTL, the plant, to the injection wells where we dispose of all the affluent.
That's not good.
So it runs basically down Eisenhower Boulevard over to the well field. It's a single pipe and needs to be basically replaced. We think it's in fairly good condition, but it is old and a single point of failure, so we want to put in a second pipe next to it. And to give us that redundancy, once that is completed, then we'll go in and we'll do some rehabilitation work on this one. So then we'll have 2 pipes that will connect the well fields to the plant.
So this will be a new addition to the CIP, because I don't see any funding for it.
There is no funding in it right now,
Right.
but it's a new project, but it's part of the consent order, so the project number is already existing.
So we really have no choice.
Well, no, we must do this
We
project.
must do this one. It's
Yes.
gotta be done. That's it. That's a good thing.
So
All right.
like I said, there's a lot of other projects that we have, but we tried to go through each of the categories and really identify 1 or 2 projects that we thought were very high in prioritization, that are not only, it's not only for one reason, but hits multiple categories within the prioritization. And then there'll be other projects that we'll be pushing forward as well to bring to the BAB and to the commission as part of our budget recommendations.
Okay. So let me just ask you a process now. Since you have not presented your asks to the city manager, what's the process going forward? What timing, in other words? When do you tell him what you want, and when does he negotiate with discuss with the board, and when does it become critical that if this is something our board wants to weigh in on, when do we have to weigh in on it?
We have our meeting with the city manager at, I think in about a week and a half, where we present our operational budget in the CIP. And we'll be having meetings with the city manager multiple times. We have a meeting with the BAB where we go over our recommendations. I think that is the end of May, around 25th to the 27th is our joint meeting with the BAB to present the budget. And then the city manager presents his budget later on, and it goes through September. But really for us, I think the key part is we'll present to the city manager 9th or the 10th of May, and then we go to the BAB and we present at the end of May,
May 25.
May 25th.
Okay.
And I believe as part of that, there is some interactions with the ITF as far as prioritization and budget constraints and all that. But really, May 25th is when we will be presenting our budget. We'll have our CIP recommendations, and we'll keep adjusting it throughout the summer
And
as.
these hopefully will be in it.
These are all things that we have in our requests that we will be putting in. Now, the general fund is dealt differently than the water and sewer. We have more control over that from Public Works. The general fund affects all the city departments, so, that gets handled a little differently.
So the ones that are in the general fund are the bridge and the streetlights.
Yes.
All the others are in the CIP.
Yes. They are in the CIP recommendations that Public Works is making.
So let me ask you, when and how do you think we can be most effective in supporting your requests? Just tell me when. Is it as a letter to the commission? Is it a letter to the city manager?
I'm not sure when, I think in June is when it gets presented to the commission, but I'm not sure the exact
Should we
timeline
wait
for
to,
when.
should we wait to the commission? I don't wanna,
June
you know.
15th is the workshop.
It's June 15th, so that is when the commission will see all of the recommendations that all of the departments have made, and so they can start considering it, and so that's probably the time to start advocating for what you believe the right priority should be.
So we would be trying to get a communication to the commission in their first meeting in June, so that they would have it.
June 15th is BAB has workshop prep, and then June 21st is the actual workshop with the commission.
And that is the first time that they will actually see the recommendations coming forward, and I'm sure over the course of July, August, September, as they're getting ready for the actual budget hearings, there'll be a lot of engagement with them. So I think any time after they receive it is a good time to make a recommendation.
We don't wanna get the cart before the horse.
Okay, that's cool, that's cool. I was just thinking, you know, maybe, no,
Be
if that's the
proactive.
process.
Be proactive.
Yeah, I would've gone sooner. Me personally, I would've gone sooner rather than wait until the process. Because once the process starts to roll, I have seen very little change in the process once it start rolling. And I would as James said, get it before it gets to be public. Because once it gets public, it has a tendency to roll along the way it's been. And, you know, a tweak here and a tweak there. I mean, if these are something that, you know, we feel really strongly, especially, in my opinion, the cybersecurity piece. I mean, that's to me a no-brainer. It's almost like, hey, guys, that's something that we gotta have. And, you know, even before you're considering the whole package, this is something that, you know, you really should make sure does not, you know, get lost in the shuffle. Because these things will get lost in the shuffle if somebody doesn't advocate for them above and beyond, you know, just you. So what do you guys think? Do you think you wanna just wait until the process goes public?
Yes.
And then okay, all right, that was pretty.
And I think right now is premature. I think he hasn't even talked to but that's just my opinion. I think we should wait. I don't know if we wait till it goes public or just before, but I don't know. What do you think?
Would we know more in our next month's meeting than we know today, that we could respond in a more
Well,
intelligent way?
I don't think anything's gonna happen before the 1st of June. That's not true, I am wrong. A lot's going on in May.
Yeah, we got meetings, 3 meetings, 3 Wednesdays, and
Okay.
the 11th, the 18th, the 25th. We're doing the departmental budget review, at least according to our work plan.
So
But
May
that's
is a
the
very
advisory
active
board,
week.
right?
Yeah.
That's not the city, that's just the advisory board.
No.
Are you saying make a recommendation to them? No, that's
No,
not what you're
I don't
saying.
think so. No, we only make recommendations to the commission.
Only to the commission, right?
That's the way I believe we
Communications.
operate,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's
communication.
not till June when they're gonna see what you
Right.
guys do, correct?
Right, it's mid-June.
See, theoretically, the best thing is for them to make a recommendation and we make a recommendation at the same time, and that they're supportive,
So
okay?
let's do it at our June meeting.
Let's do it, all
I
right,
think we should do it on our first June.
let's put this back on the agenda for the June
It's our
meeting,
June
okay?
meeting.
And see how things rock.
There were a couple of hints that Alan gave us today. One is the 3-year backlog in the small projects. That's not necessarily a budgetary line item, that's a state of affairs. That's something that the commission should be cognizant of heading in, that it's not the request for $150,000 or $250,000, it's the fact that you're working 3.5 years out
Yeah.
with this money. You should throw a lump at it this year and clear the deck.
Well,
That's all I was asking, was it a
that might be
$1,000
even
fund?
better, a position to take instead of drip, drip, drip.
Yeah,
Let's just
this-
throw
this
$1
is
million
it.
at it and,
Here,
clear the
here's a
backlog.
cheat sheet to keep in front of you when you're reviewing the budget. You got a backlog over here, you've got leaves in the storm sewer system in Poinsettia Heights that you gotta get out of there.
Mhm.
There's a puddle, to Jackie's point, there are things rather than there's money, because everybody's gonna be pecking after the money, right? It's budget season,
Okay,
it's the things that we're concerned about.
all right, so June meeting, we'll be talking about this again and getting closer, having the input of what's gone on in May, and you'll keep us apprised of what's going.
Well, their outcome is public record, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. so
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have access to it.
But we have a spy. We don't need those public records. We have Michael. Okay, next item on the agenda, here we go.
Our revenues is looking like.
Yeah, oh,
It's
sure,
gotta be a
you wanna
massive
ask, now's the time.
You know, I can't remember off the top of my head. I've been out of the country for a week, you guys. My brain's a little mush. But, hang on, maybe I can find it here.
Well, while he's looking,
Yeah.
let's go on to new business, okay? The asset management plan and funding in FY '23. Now, Alan, you know I love the asset management plan. And we really need to keep on top of the asset management plan. That was one of, James, are you, when you got your briefing or your backup material, did it include the information about the asset management plan?
It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
That's the software that they
That's-
pitched to us 2 years ago. It was going to tell the condition of all of our assets, put them in, the age, everything about it, so we could anticipate what we needed to fix, replace, whatever, and have a plan. That's what we're talking about,
Yes,
correct?
that's right, and it was a requirement of the consent order. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't something, you might have wanted to do it anyway, but it was a requirement of the consent order.
Did that start?
Yes.
Did the software
Chris, you
come in?
wanna?
Yes, and actually, we have Fred Harris here right back off to the side. He's our City Works administrator who has been involved since we started the implementation process of bringing on City Works, the software program that will be used to help us actually manage the asset program. So first we're putting together the software that'll run all the predictor analyses. In other words, how old are things, what's the risk of them breaking, and estimating what should be fixed first, second, third. And then also being able to actually record where everything is and all the information
Where are
about
we
it.
in the process of all
Well,
of
let's
this? Did it
welcome
just
back
begin?
Fred. Let's welcome back Fred so he can talk.
So I'll let Fred answer that, but generally speaking, we are about ready to go live with one of the main modules, which is consent order related for, I believe, sewer.
Correct.
Which will have the sewer assets mapped and the majority of the aging information in it, so then we can start maintaining that asset using the system, and then we move forward from there. So did we just start? No, unfortunately, this has been a program implementation that's been, for various reasons, slowed to where we are today, but now we're moving forward faster and more efficiently.
Okay,
So I'll
welcome
let
back, Fred.
answer the rest.
I remember your first presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry, so, just to bring everybody up to speed, the purpose of asset management is to document the current state of the assets within the city of Fort Lauderdale and project long-range asset renewal and replacement ideas. Behind that, an effective asset management plan will inform the city of Fort Lauderdale on infrastructure and investment planning throughout the asset life cycle. This will provide us with risk-based and data-driven decision-making opportunities.
Can you go to the next slide?
Who's doing the slides?
Slide.
Hand it over here, boom, boom.
So, this is just a quick definition of what asset management is. I won't insult you, everybody can read it. But if you can't see it, it's a cross-functional discipline requiring solid governance, strong leadership, and well-coordinated policies and practices to meet the city of Fort Lauderdale objectives.
Oh, Fred, can I add one thing to it?
Sure.
Requires money and constant updating and constant focus.
Right.
Because the problem with these kinds of programs and all of these programs is that it's garbage in, garbage out. You gotta be on them all the time, you gotta give them good information, and you gotta stick with it. This is not a short-term thing, and the city is not just this city, but cities in general are not heroes in keeping focus and keeping.
They haven't done it in the past.
And they haven't done it in the past, so that's why this is so
Well,
important.
so that begs the question. So Fred, is there a plan in place that somebody oversees this, or the information is centralized and that person puts it in, or what's?
Let me answer that question. Let me go to the next slide.
Okay.
And I'll be able to answer that question. So, CityWorks is an enterprise asset management system. It is basically the place where you keep record of all the information that relates to your your assets in terms of work that you've done, if you've got breaks on pipe, any type of labor that is attached to it. So CityWorks would be your place of record where you would keep all of this information. All of this information is GIS-based, which basically means that you can take a look at a map and see where the pipes and some of the assets are, whether it be stormwater, sewer, gravity main manholes, bridges. Eventually is where we're going, but we're gonna start first and foremost with the horizontal assets. So CityWorks would be the place where this would reside initially. We'll have a team of people that will do a Q&A process after information has been received from the field to make sure that it's accurate.
Can I ask you a real quick question?
Sure.
The company that sold you the software, are they still working with everybody for this to work properly?
Yes,
I mean, that's critical for any system like this to work.
right. Well, we've got an implementation partner. CityWorks is owned by Trimble. We have Wolford, which is an implementation partner. They are a business partner of Trimble.
So
And
they
they're
work with
still-
you guys,
they're still
helping you
working
get
with
this
us,
all?
helping us get the information,
Okay.
get the software stood up as possible. Some of the things that you'll get from CityWorks, not only will you get the equipment, labor, and material costs, you'll be able to get work order counts by asset groups, whether it's proactive, maintenance, or reactive. We'll be able to define that and share that information, and then we'll have real-time dashboards that can display the KPIs for each of the individual asset groups.
Who puts this information in?
Which information are you referring to?
Actually, all the information. Who puts the information
How do
in?
you catalog it?
So what will happen is there'll be a work order that's generated that is sent to the field crews. They'll go out and do whatever maintenance they need to do. And if they need to use materials, they'll add that material to the work order. And at the end of the day, they'll roll that cost into the work order. And then we'll be able to run a report to tell you how much we spent on particular types of work orders. And then we can make an informed decision about where we're spending our money for rehab and rehabilitation.
And if I can interject on that, just the setup, the implementation of the system also includes a lot of effort, not just from the team that's helping us implement the software, but including folks from Hazen and Sawyer on the consent order program and all their subs, as well as all the different consultants who are working on different programs for us to collect the age information and condition information of our existing infrastructure as we put those assets into the software system during this implementation process. So as much info as we have, whether it be on paper or from projects that have been recently executed, we're also implementing or inputting that information into the assets attributes as we build out the software program. So then when we move forward with maintenance or CIP projects, to Fred's point, that's when we add more info or update the info to those assets as we move forward.
So you're still putting the assets in, you don't have all the assets in the system yet?
For the most part, we have GIS'd most of our water and sewer and stormwater assets and a handful of our other hard assets like vertical structures and so forth. But there's still a large handful of assets that we're going back and filling in the blanks. Areas where there's errors or where we know we're missing something because it's just too few of quantity of asset in a certain area. So we are having to manually fill in those blanks. But for the most part, the three major utilities that we run are mostly mapped with pretty high accuracy. It's just getting it into the system, checked, QC'd, and then getting the work order program set up so we can move forward with actually managing the assets.
Will this system identify problems that I've noticed out in the field for maybe 10, 15 years, such as you have a manhole that has been settling, differential settlement between that and in this particular case, an 8-inch sewer main. And all that has happened is essentially the work crews get out there, they get in there and they backfill, they compact and patch it up without really addressing the problem. And I would estimate that it's probably been over 10 repeated trips and events, but not really fixing the problem where there's a sheared off gravity sewer line with the manhole and putting in either a flexible something or something to hold it, by patching it, it still shears, and then it promotes even more settlement because the water and the sand is being extracted from there. Is this gonna maybe put a red flag up and say, hey, we've gotta really go out there and fix this thing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we can set it up for things like that, but that's the type of stuff that we would have to put in parameters ourselves. A certain number of repeat types of repairs could trigger warnings like that. Also, part of a mature asset management program, not just a software system, but a program which will take several more years, will include having our crews that are in the field be trained up on, proper inspection techniques. Don't just go out there blindly fix a settled pipe, actually inspect it and then make a report if it needs something beyond the patch.
Yeah.
And then, so as we develop a more mature program over the upcoming years, that'll be one of the things that we have to train, educate, and hopefully hold our field crews accountable for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this would eventually, for all the costs for those 10 or more times, you could have fixed the thing correctly and saved a lot of money. That location, by the way, it's at Northeast 21st Road and Northeast 63rd Court. It's a T intersection. And it's just been constantly, well, go check the work tickets. I think that's the best historic evidence of what has happened. I'm just sitting there, I said, geez, fortunately, it's a shallow manhole and line. But if it's been deep, you could just imagine the gads of water and sand that it would really be pumping into the system.
How much money have we spent on this so far?
That I don't know. I don't know the history of the last 3 years. Fred, do we have an estimate on what's been spent so far?
Just over 800,000.
Is there a budget line for this? Is this a special budget line, or is this come out of the pencil budget? Where does it come
No,
from?
this was a project that was funded.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, the
When they
software,
brought it to us?
the initial software purchase and implementation would have its own project, which would have its own budget, which is probably the budget that Fred's mentioning has been spent down so far,
Okay.
with some remaining. But then there's also secondary funding that comes from other projects, like for instance, the one where the consent order required us to map the sewer system and actually go live with the actual inspection and work order modules. So we get funding from that in order to fill in those blanks I was referring to earlier, to get those modules up and running as well.
So when we do the consent order mapping of the water system, all of that will go into it as well?
That information will be used to go into the system to make sure we update those assets.
And when we did all the fire hydrants, and we found out where all the fire hydrants were, did that go into it?
Yep, I'm sorry.
Oh, God bless, thank you. Okay, so you need money.
Oh, yes.
Well, where? Tell me where you need money, so, I can lobby for you. Where do you need money?
Everywhere.
Besides Fred's salary, what line item needs money
You mean to keep this going?
to keep it
I
going?
agree.
The biggest.
Is it in the
ticket
budget?
Is going to be for condition assessment, which is something that you'll have to do continually. And for FY '23, I want to make sure that I explain this properly. Each of the utilities is at a different stage within the asset management program.
Okay,
Your stormwater is a much
Where?
further along.
Okay.
Sewer, we just received the final, I won't call it final, but as best as we're gonna get from Hazen in terms of where all of our sewer assets are. And that still is probably at about 80%, 85%, where we have that much confidence in it. So what we need to do next is start looking at doing condition assessment for water. Because water, we have about 85% of what we know is the assets that are already in the system. In order for us to move forward with asset management, since we know what's there, we're going to take what we have there and start doing a desktop assessment, which is basically they look at the pipe type, the age, the soil, that kind of information, and they do some kind of algorithm and come up with an answer in terms of what is the remaining useful life on those assets.
but didn't Hazen and Sawyer do that for the stormwater system?
For stormwater, yes.
Right, so but now you're talking about
Water.
other
Yeah, I'm
systems,
talking
water.
about water
So we're gonna have to like follow the path for water that we followed for Hazen.
Correct, and can you go to the next slide? No, there's one that's missing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
that one, I'm so sorry. So this is basically the path that you would take in the asset management plan as it relates to the city of Fort Lauderdale. Can you scroll down a little bit so I can see the bottom? So the steps as it relates to the Institute of Asset Management, the first thing that you want to do is identify your assets and know what condition they're in. Then you develop your asset management strategy, and then you further do some more planning and development, and then you do your implementation of your asset management plan. And then at that point, you'll have quality data. This is post the implementation of CityWorks. You will have at that point been putting information in for a number of years and gotten past the point where you've got people that are making mistakes from the new implementation of the system. So you're looking at something out about 6 to 12 months from the implementation that should be coming in June. And this is taking you from being, I know it says current date. We're not actually at this point, but we're somewhere in this area when you look at all of the 3 utilities that are involved. So what we're trying to get to is being strategic. That's where you're making an informed decision about how you're going to replace and rehab and invest in the infrastructure for the
What's
remaining.
gonna happen in 2027?
So let me ask you a question on this, since this chart is up, which is a very good chart. Identifying the assets and condition. What assets are we talking about? We're not talking about every asset the city has.
Well, the goal would be for this to be a citywide, all departments management system. Right now, the focus is obviously the water, sewer, stormwater. And then with that, we're also bringing in the facilities that are related to water and sewer, and stormwater too, including pump stations, because those are all of our critical assets. So we also have asphalt and sidewalk information that will be roped into here too. So we do have pavement condition indexing of the asphalt roadways, as well as a report that's probably out of date, but we're still using it quite a bit for sidewalk condition.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have money in the budget? Are you budgeting money in this next fiscal year to make sure this thing can move as fast forward as possible? And
That's
that
the
it's
question.
properly funded?
I've got money in the project to handle FY23 for the water utility that needs to happen.
The water utility, but I mean,
It seems to me, I understand that because there's the contract, all right? We have the contract. How's the contract going to get the mapping done? Did we let that contract, the consultant to do the mapping of the water system?
The water consent you're talking about.
Yes, the water
Yeah,
consent,
the water mapping.
right.
Yeah, we haven't.
That's
Did you
one
wanna
of the
jump in? She's asking about
Yeah,
that.
the water mapping.
Yeah, right now we have the funding for that project, yes.
I know we had the funding. Did we let the contract?
So, I think there is an item on the agenda that we're gonna talk about it. Currently, it's in the cone of silence, we are advertising it to.
Oh, so you're
because
still in the cone of
The
silence?
commission asked us to re-advertise due to some litigation they had with my consultant. So right now, we're in the process, and it's closing on May 23rd.
Okay, so then when that guy starts working
Yes.
and finishes working, that all goes in.
Absolutely.
So we'll have sewer and we'll have water, but we won't have that for a while. So when you say you have money in FY23, what do you have money for?
The condition assessment that we need to do is for what we actually know we have, so we can start making those plans. We can't really talk about what we don't know right now, but as opposed to waiting, it's better that we have the information about what we do have, so we can start using the predictor, so it can tell you what is the health of the overall system and start making some long-term predictions.
But you have all the information about the sewers. It's in there already, from Hazen and Sawyer. Am I right? If I was to go and pull up those lovely charts, what would I be able to look at?
You look at about 80%
Lovely charts.
of what we have.
80% of sewers.
Correct. There are some parts and pieces within that sewer situation that
It
we're
might be
still
missing.
trying to.
Okay, but 80% of the system, the sewer system is in there.
Correct.
So do you have money now to go into the condition assessment part of the sewers, or are we still,
They
Spending
handled that
time
with the
doing-
consent order. They did that as part of the consent order. They did the condition assessment for sewer.
But I thought condition assessment was the additional information that comes in from the field as they go about their work. Maybe I got that wrong.
No, that could.
There's an initial condition assessment
Right,
when they were doing the consent order, they went out and looked at it, but
Right.
this will be a continual thing. You'll always, whenever there's a work order or something done, you'll always want to go out there and update that information.
right, so that's the issue, is as you do, you'll go about your regular business, okay? And somebody has to go fix some sewer thing, okay? They come back and they have to put that information into your new system.
Like the QLR system that we were talking earlier,
Right,
that's gonna be part of that.
right. So you don't need funding for that. That's already funded because that's the jobs that people are doing. What do you need money for to move this system along, to get it to really cracking?
Right now, we're not showing any funding shortages for any of the stuff that we know we need to continue moving to implement for
If
the
we
next.
were gonna be here again in another year, God help us, another year, and I'm gonna have Fred back again, what are we gonna hear from Fred in a year that we have progressed on this, if we don't give you more money to do something?
If you didn't give us a penny right now,
Yes.
next year, what you would hear is that City Works has been up and functional for 10 to 12 months, and we're able to take that data and make some informed decisions. The only problem is that the data that you're gonna get for like the first 6 months, you're gonna have to take that with a grain of salt. People are gonna be learning to use the system, there are gonna be some errors, so we're going to have to make sure that we train them well, but we're doing the Q&A process.
Do you need the training money? Do you need money to train the staff on how to use the system?
No, that's not gonna be, when I say training, I'm saying in the event that I showed you that 2 + 2 is 4, and he heard 2 + 2 is 5, and then he put it in as 5, then we have to go back in and correct it. So it's gonna be something that we handle in-house.
In-house,
Correct.
in-house.
We just want to make sure this really moves forward as fast as possible, and there's no obstacles regarding funding.
The biggest thing that you will most likely hear as we're doing next year's budget, which will be starting in like 7 months from now again, will be most likely, we're trying to figure out our asset management program team, the actual organizational structure of that team. Right now, you know, with Fred and Matthew, being basically our 2-person team, and with some assistance, obviously a lot of assistance from IT folks for GIS support and programming implementation support. That's not a program. That's just getting the software up and running and ready to use so we can start working on these 2 or 3 assets that we have high confidence in.
So we have money to get the system up and running.
We have money to get the system up and running and to continue implementing another asset every several months and start working on those assets and training to use the software. The problem is not this year's budget, not only because we don't have it, but we're just not quite ready for it. We have to develop an organizational structure for the asset management team.
How many people
program.
do you need? Probably 2 or 3 more?
I would say if we had to ask for FTEs, full-time bodies, really what we need. Fred's up there saying 5, but really what we're gonna be pushing for is 1 or 2 in this first request to structure the upper end of
That's what you
IT
need.
database management and knowledge set for that, as well as 1 more person on the operational side.
You know, that is so cheap. I mean, that is.
So he says 5 and he says 2.
I know, whatever-
What's up with
whatever
that?
the number-
Well,
what-
I
I'm
have to
just saying-
manage the budget properly. I'm not asking for 5 people in one
No,
year budget.
he can't do it the first
It's not
year,
gonna happen.
he'd get killed. But what I'm saying, when I say it's so cheap, the amount of money we would have to invest to have a functioning unit within Public Works that now has this super duper program that everybody is trained on and pumping the information
No,
into.
2 or 5 people are trained on, go ahead.
Whatever number of people it is to do that, to get to that point, is so minuscule compared to being in the situation we were in for the last 10 years before we started up again, and everything was just, Harry says it needs to be fixed. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to do this way. So whenever you get to a point, if we're still here, anybody's here, I would behoove you to, I would implore you to, make sure that you put it on the table so that this group, who can be your biggest advocate, will do the job of advocating for that.
Certainly, yeah. And the other thing too is, again, this isn't a public works software. This is a city software. So while we'll be advocating for our own department to be able to operate all the assets in the right of way, as well as certain facilities, You know, we also have to work with other departments to start getting them on board to help fund their portion of what's needed, as well as get them up and running as super users and field users too.
You're gonna need more than 2 and 5 people.
Not to do the whole city. No,
I
that's
mean, you gotta
crazy.
you
Well, I
gotta
know
ramp
where
it
you're
up
starting
quickly.
slow until building up.
And again, my responsibility is our department and everything that's in the right of way and all the plants. So
See, if I,
that in
if,
itself is a monster undertaking that we can't just jump onto with a whole
right,
bunch of
if the
money.
city manager were to ask me, I would tell him that, don't be so ambitious. Stick with the Public Works Department, get the thing rocking and rolling with the Public Works Department. And then, we'll bring in the rest of the group once it's rocking and rolling, because it's just in my opinion, it's an overreach to try and do this whole thing for the whole city when you haven't even gotten it to the point where it's actually
Well, I mean,
functional and usable.
I think the software is created for that, so I think the city probably has a vision that this can
It's a
be
good
used
vision.
for the whole city, right? But I think that how you implement it and putting enough people in place you're gonna be the salespeople for the whole city
Yeah.
as far as wanting to go further. So I think it's critical that you put the number of people in to show the success of this.
And I think Public Works, it's important that we have a limited focus on, area that we have to look on rather than the entire city spectrum. Because if you look at too many things, you're not going to be able to make the Public Works situation better and successful, where other parts of the city can look at that and make an analogous effort to achieve the same success.
Yeah, and
Would you-
in all honesty, even from a public works perspective, I think too big of a bite was trying to be taken at once to begin with, which frankly slowed down our initial progress. So as we're taking a step back and realizing, let's do one utility at a time, rather than somehow magically doing all 5 at once.
Yeah, so you can make it work.
So that's what we're doing.
Would you say that of all the departments within the city, the most complex for asset management is your department?
Definitely.
Yeah, so you guys are really the poster children for this system working.
Yep.
So I hope to God you make it work and make it work as quick as you can.
Right, and while I'm here, one other thing I wanted to clear up is that CityWorks itself is an asset management system, but it is not the program. It's just what we're using as a decision tool. I just want to make sure that I keep the distinction between the two.
What do you mean by that? Say it again.
So CityWorks is the application where we'll be putting in
That's the
all
software
the
company.
software that will do the mapping and keeping track of the work orders, the equipment and the labor and materials. That is the system that we're using, but it is not considered asset management on its own right.
Right, it's
Asset
data, it's dumb
management-
data.
Yeah, asset management is just kind of a framework that helps you make
Yeah.
informed decisions. So I just wanted to make sure I
Well,
cleared
you're using
that
it
up.
for two different purposes.
Yeah, I didn't want you to take away the understanding that CityWorks and asset management were one and the same.
Yeah, they're two things, but they work together.
That's correct.
Well, isn't one the data that informs the decision making? In other words, once you've got CityWorks working and you have all the data and you know what's going on, then somebody has to make the policy decisions relative to the data.
That's correct.
That's the asset management system, the way I understand it.
They're trying to find out where everything is.
They're not doing asset management yet, in my opinion. What they're doing is they're collecting data. They're making the system work so that when they have enough data to be able to inform a policy decision, this is the way planners do it. You need the data. Once you got it, then you can make a decision.
You're still in the
Based
first
upon
step.
this data, we should be doing A, B, and C. Or our priority is A, B, and C, so how does this data inform where we're gonna go with A, B, and C? Because somebody else is making, this is just dumb data, is all this is.
Yeah, but it's a system to put
But
it all
it's
together.
the most important data.
Yeah.
You can't make decisions without data. So, again, if you ever need any money for this, come to anybody, because you explain this to anybody who's interested in maintaining an optimal system, or even a functional system, never mind an optimal system, and not falling back into our bad old ways. This is important. And I hope the commissioners understand how
Well,
important
I
this is.
imagine too, from a culture perspective, it's gotta be very difficult for the department. I mean, it's a total culture change, correct? To try to implement something like this.
Yeah, because before, somebody worked here 30 years, they knew X pipe was so many years old.
Yeah.
And now, we're gonna have that knowledge, and that's
I
a
had that-
good thing, but you're right. It's a shame.
And keeping people interested in making sure they wanna enter all this stuff and the importance
I
of
had
it.
that problem in New York City with the sewers. You know, and we took call John DiMartino, who'd been there for 30 years, and say, John, which is the next project? Somebody's complaining about this, and he'd say, no, we gotta do the other one first. I said, why? He says, because I know.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you can't explain that to people because John said, we're gonna do this one and not that one. It doesn't fly. So, okay, any other questions on asset management? We'll see you again in a year.
We enjoyed that discussion, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we actually, we've talked about the consent agreement mapping and water system. We have an item that's going up for the commission, so we've covered that one, right? The
I
next
saw
one?
that project is on Konos Island, so it's advertised. We were waiting for bids to come in.
Okay, and so the next item is the yearly analysis of the water system breaks in 2021. We talked about this at our last meeting, and I asked the staff to actually do the full year analysis. So do we have that? The full year, not, we get a monthly analysis, the breaks every month,
We really
okay?
wanna hear this bad news again?
is the yearly.
Pardon me? This is the yearly.
This is the yearly. You have to show.
It's just gotta shrink the stream. It's on the right side of the stream.
Okay, so 37 breaks.
37 and 21?
There you go, that's what we need to see.
And 12 of them were hit by contractors,
And
Really?
12 of them by contractors, okay?
which happens, you know, stuff's not located properly, you don't know where it is.
So minus
We get
12.
back to asset management,
You'll never
putting holes in
to know where the stuff is, and there's so many things in some of these streets.
I mean, you can tell them where the pipe is and they'll still drill through it and not pay attention to the market.
They should show up with an infrared thing, locate
They
the
do, and
pipe.
it's still, we took out a gas line over on Las Olas that wasn't marked, it was under a retaining wall that Eco didn't know it was even there.
Right, sometimes you don't know they're there, yeah.
In some of these streets now, for instance, in the Las Olas area where you are, Jackie, you've got a 48-inch line, you've got other force mains and gravity lines, you've got big FPL ducts, all jammed into one street. And sometimes it's gotta happen. There's no way around it. Fortunately, the city's gotta come through, they repair this stuff quickly. It's gonna happen.
Okay, so 37 breaks, 12 hit by contractors, what other news?
What are the,
Well, they seem to be, if you can make it even
What's
small, they
south?
seem to be concentrated.
Can we go south on this, see what it looks like a little bit north?
Can you make it a little smaller?
And everything's been fixed.
I just wanna see. So it's really more the central part.
Okay, that's good enough.
That's good.
So the southern part of the city is not,
Pretty good.
is pretty good. It's the middle. And that's the oldest, right? It's the middle is the oldest.
A lot of work.
There you go.
Too, a lot of
And
construction.
where all the construction is. Okay. So there's not. Nothing.
Where is
nothing jumps
the
out to me.
main line that we fixed and put a redundant line with it? Can you point that out on Mark?
Water or sewer?
That's sewer.
Oh, okay.
That's sewer.
It's not,
These are water
I
breaks.
mean, it comes. It's kind of small. It's somewhere around, all the way from here, from Coral Ridge,
Yeah.
all the way down to Flat.
And then there's a redundant one with it.
The redundant is gonna be done.
You're working on that, okay.
Right, that's the consent order one, that we're gonna either line or replace.
Oh, that's the one in here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's marvelous. Yes, okay. That's the
yeah,
redundant.
that's the one there.
Okay, so we came, we looked, we didn't see anything significantly that we need to worry about. Moving on. Okay, moving on.
The leaks that you guys have had are
Water
the
sewer.
breaks. You know, there's a couple in here, there's a 10-inch in Victoria Park, I think, that was a pretty good size one, and there was one at Southeast First. It was a 12-inch,
Southeast First?
I'm sorry, it's a 16-inch at Las Olas and Southeast First Avenue. Were those failures or those, what happened? I mean, those were biggies.
You talking sewer or water?
Water. The one in June was East Las Olas and Southeast
Can
First
you make
Avenue.
that same big, right? I cannot read this thing right now.
Damaged valve.
I don't wanna,
16.
Hurt my eyesight.
And then there was a 10-inch at Sixth Street and 16th Avenue. I kind of remember that one.
Was that the
Okay.
one, was that the one where
That-
nobody, everyone was boiling water for a month and nobody could get any information?
No, that was down
I think it
there.
was that one. This was in the middle of the street, the water was coming up through the cracks in the asphalt.
I remember that.
Which one?
The 18, there's a 16-inch there in the middle, East Las Olas and Southeast First.
That was a damaged valve.
So was that, somebody hit it or it was?
No, I
a
think
bad
that was
valve?
that was a valve that needed to be replaced.
But in terms of impact, from the look of it, it wasn't a monster.
No,
They exercised the valve too roughly.
it was, yeah. I mean, it were 16 properties, you know, it's probably the whole street
Right.
that had that valve issue there. What's the other one?
And there's one that says
September 6th.
September 6th, Sixth Street and Northeast 16th Avenue. That was I don't know if that was the biggie or,
No, that one wasn't too big. I mean, that's right in front of where I live.
most of the biggies, you know, or somebody hits it or they,
That is a big name.
yeah.
And I think it was down for like a day or so. I remember when I did the place within a day.
Yeah, it was replaced pretty quickly. It leaked for a couple of days.
Right?
Leaked for a couple of days and then,
Then you've got the two succession 48 hours apart for the bacteriological testing. That's
Right.
always
The
extensive.
one that they
time.
couldn't get to come up was the one by the condos at Las Olas and,
Right.
that would have been about Fourth Avenue or Fifth Avenue, or would have been Southeast Fourth Street, Southeast Fourth Street and First. That was in the late fall.
That was, yeah. That took like
And it
2
could-
weeks.
That
They
took
fixed it
a
quickly,
long
they just
time.
couldn't get the bacterial count to come.
The problem with those areas is that the pipes, the pipes don't loop, so they have dead ends. So when you're trying to flush those,
Flush
it's
them.
very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things we wanna do is loop all those pipes on the aisles. And so we shouldn't have that problem, but that's a big.
That's a big
Excellent.
project, that's not in the budget.
Right.
No, okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so moving down onto the Public Works update,
Sewer main break.
sewer main breaks, yes. Public Works April water and wastewater break report. This is our weekly report, our monthly report, we get them. Anything unusual happen?
We didn't have any sewer breaks at all in April. And we did have 2 water breaks.
Now,
Okay,
the annual sewer breaks, we only have 6 of them.
so far,
Well,
or
for
the big one,
21, for
the
21.
I saw it, yeah.
How did that compare? Is that,
I mean, that
that was
is
good, huh?
good, yeah. I mean, a lot of these pipes that we changed, like Old Victoria Park, in other couple of neighborhoods, you can tell that those are helping because you don't have as many. breaks.
Actually, it would be really interesting to see from the real problem started rocking and rolling around 2019, actually 2017. When people became aware of the problems, to see how the progression of the breaks over a period of time. I think that would be very good because I think that it would be a good looking chart to show that the number of breaks are going down. And I think that the commission would be very pleased to see
Something to,
something to
Crow
crow
about,
about and
yeah.
say, look, from 2017, look at how much better it's
So
getting
just
every
to have
year.
all the number of breaks and have like a line or
Like
something.
a line, and
Yeah, 'cause
hopefully
you know
the
it'll go
line's
down
going
like
this
that.
way.
You make great progress. And
Yeah.
that big line.
And
so
that would show it.
The other
Not
thing
just them
with
up
the
with that.
sewer is the fact that you'll have less inflow to the Lomar plant.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit that's gained
That's for
from the
I
sewer.
and I though.
Right.
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
I&I.
yeah. You
Well,
know
the
what?
The other thing is, it's not so much the number of breaks as it is the number of gallons that escaped. when-
And didn't go into the water.
During the time of exploding pipes.
Right.
I mean, you guys were always,
I don't wanna do that again.
You don't remember
Gerald, that would be a really good forum topic, one of these days.
Rio Vista had
If
tomato
we could
plants
put that
going all over the
together.
neighborhood.
You know, what progress have we
Tomato
made
plants?
since 2017?
where are
I
we?
don't get
And
it.
where are we going?
Seeds
What
are
are
in
we?
the
Where
sewer
are we
water.
going? Okay.
No, seriously, they had tomato plants growing up like a block from the breakage on Ninth
Yeah.
Avenue. Because the seeds were in the sewer water, so you, then they get in the ground, next thing you know, you got a tomato growing on your front yard.
How come we weren't getting marijuana growing?
Okay,
All right, we're moving on, Okay, we are moving on, because we all have to get out of here in a single hour. Okay, I don't think, financial report, that's something you give us all the time, and they're just so small, I can't read them. Is there something we need to know about them in the financial report?
Kim, I mean, she can answer any questions you have, but I think we are on track with the spending on the bonds.
Okay,
So you can see here on this first page that we're up to 136 million
that's
out of
good.
2,000.
So when's the next bond, report?
I think it's 2025.
No, I meant the next reporting. Every 6 months you report.
Yeah, this
To the
one,
state.
well, this one was in April. This is the.
This
was
is the
just
April
done.
report.
So another one will be back in 6 months from.
6 months.
What are
Okay.
the big projects you guys are on right now?
There is a few consent order projects that we're working on. There is also a lot of improvements at Five Ash that we're doing until we build a new plant. So
Yeah,
those have to
16
be
million.
done, and some of these are part of this. You can see the Five Ash upgrades, that's a big one there.
yeah.
And mainly the sewer, water and sewer. Sewer force main breaks, I mean, we spent a lot of money on that and we got the extra pipe that I was telling you about, so that's part of that.
That's good.
The Las Olas Marina Pump Station, are you guys gonna do that, or is it private?
That's a private,
They'll be doing it
they
part of the-
started already,
They started?
yeah. And that should be completed within a year. I mean, they're saying 9 months or 8 months, but I don't think that's gonna be the case.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Next item is the general discussion. Let's talk about can we talk about our summer schedule?
Our what?
Summer schedule. Traditionally, we take off in July and August, which corresponds to the downtime for the commission, unless something comes up. I don't know, did we just take off the one?
We used to always just take up
July,
August,
wasn't it?
or July.
July, yeah. Okay, July. Do we need to take a motion to cancel the meeting in July? I believe we do. Would someone like to make a motion about canceling the July meeting?
I move that we cancel July 2022 meeting.
James made the motion, second by Gerald. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So do we have anything else for general discussion and public comments? Yes,
I have
James?
a couple of items I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
The first one was about the minutes, and I appreciate that we deferred those till next month since we got them so late. I was wondering, and I'm not sure who the group is that sends these out, but it was, when it did come today, it was all bundled with all of the presentations and stuff. And I'm wondering if it's possible, if when the agenda comes out, that the minutes from the last meeting come out at the same time, and if there's any other supporting documents, those could come later. Is it, and I don't know.
So, we had Tracy,
Yes.
she resigned, and she was doing all this planning for the meeting, and she left. And, so we had to take over, and it was a challenging situation, so it shouldn't be the case next time.
But I think he's asking for something that I agree with him on. Instead of sending it all together in that tiny little print, if you send the agenda and the minutes in one bundle
Right.
package, and then the backup in another,
Yeah.
because then we can
He's
focus
talking
on
about different PDFs.
different groups of PDFs, so that when you get the agenda, you also get the minutes of the previous meeting. So you can
That's
jump
what
right
I would-
into it.
That's what I would prefer.
That's what I
Okay,
would,
okay.
yeah.
I think that's what we were doing.
We were doing that, and then we went to putting them all on that one big
Okay.
sheet.
I guess what's really happening is when we post it to the website, we have to post the minutes, including with the backup, and so that's why we've been combining it. But we can send it to you separately, but when we put it online, it will be combined.
That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, posting it
public's-
is not the issue, it's getting it
It's
to
getting-
us
right.
that I think is the
Okay,
question.
very good.
Okay, my other question about the minutes was, and if I need to defer this to the second discussion on this, is that when we had the presentation by the Assistant City Attorney regarding sunshine law, and I've read the minutes, I think there's a contradiction here. I don't know if anyone, but there's one comment where, and this starts with, Chairman Mamano noted that at a community or civic meetings, she says sometimes asked to speak on items that have gone before ITFAC. Attorney Spence confirmed that this is not an issue if she is the only ITFAC member speaking on that item. If a second ITFAC member attends that meeting, they may listen but may not address the same item. Then, further down, Attorney Spence reiterated that both members could be present at the meeting, but only one of them would be permitted to comment on that issue. It was further clarified that individual neighborhood or other associations, including the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations, are not subject to the Sunshine Law. So to me, there's a conflict there.
Yeah, but wait a minute, the Council of Civic Associations
If you're a member,
isn't
you're
run by
present.
the city or anything. It's not an
It's not a
appointment.
governmental
But
agency.
he says individual neighborhood or other associations, including. So to me,
So
that
their
means.
meetings, their meetings aren't, their meetings.
As long as they're not a
subject to
member of
Sunshine,
the
right?
infrastructure.
But if you have two these committee members here,
That is
there and
sunshine.
engage in a conversation, and suddenly you've engaged into
Made a
what
sunshine
should
law.
be a duly noticed public hearing. Otherwise, I mean, you're right, the civic association.
It's not conflicted, because
So if the Poinsettia Heights Civic Association, just say, for
Yeah, go ahead, say
example,
it. Mhm.
there were two people from the neighborhood who were both on this committee, could we or could we not have a discussion?
No.
You could
No,
not.
not
You
about
could
this.
No,
listen,
because
one of you
you-
could speak, but not both of you.
You make the sunshine violation, not the Poinsettia Park meeting.
But it says.
We go to the supermarket together.
It was,
Can't talk
We
about
can't
ourselves.
talk about
it was
this.
further clarified that individual neighborhood or other associations, including the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations, are not subject to the Sunshine Law.
It's true.
But they're not, but you are. We're subject, just memorize
If
this.
Jackie and I go to a meeting, we can't talk about together.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
that
So it's
that
the
would be
association.
wherever you are.
It's
That would be
our
wherever you are.
association.
If I
It's
go
the
out for a drink
people
with
that
her,
are-
we're not supposed to talk about
Well, you don't even
infrastructure
drink, so that
issues.
doesn't happen.
If I go eat with
Well,
her,
why
I
not?
eat, that's for damn sure.
Well, I've,
Okay,
no comment.
sorry, thank you, I'm
Okay,
glad we cleared
clear.
that up, because I
All right.
needed some clarification.
Was there anything else under general discussion?
I had one more thing I wanted to talk
Sure.
about. Oh, so, I think everybody here understands that we did a redistricting process, and my neighborhood now is part of District 1.
Oh.
Is there an issue that there are two people from District 1 on this,
No, you're appointed by the commissioner.
Yeah.
well, as appointed by Steve Glassman?
They tend to apportion them, but the actual appointment is by the overall commission.
Okay, so it doesn't matter that there's two of us, okay, that was.
I would
my
speak
Because
to-
there's already some from the
After the
same
election, there may
commissioner
be-
or mayor.
They could, I mean, the commissioner could say, listen, thanks, but
I
you're not
wanna
in my
put my own
district now,
person
and
on.
put my own person in. So if I were
Could do
you,
that.
I would contact Heather and say, do you want me to continue? You know, that's what I would do.
Or
We're having a
whoever's running for the
pre-agenda meeting
post.
tonight.
I know, I was gonna ask, I'm
What'd
gonna
you
do
say?
that.
Actually, I would talk to David Solomon first, the
David?
city clerk.
Well, there's different people that are registered, one person's registered, I think. but
Yeah, but you always
it's supposed
serve
to
at
be
you
another.
always serve at the pleasure of the commission. So
Right,
I would call,
commissioner.
if I were you, I'd call
Be
Heather.
Heather, yeah.
So
But
Heather has a
redistricting,
meeting today.
when is redistricting effective though? I don't know if it's not effective.
Right now,
It's
it's
effective.
done.
It's
It's
effective,
done.
okay.
Yeah, the second
Done.
reading was last.
Okay.
It started today,
Right.
or yesterday, May 1st.
So who's Heather's appointment on here?
Ralph.
Ralph.
Oh,
And does each
You get
commissioner
off.
get
You're
one
lucky.
appointment?
Well, that's the question,
I don't know.
No, there's more than that,
No,
because there's more
no,
than 6 people
yeah.
or 4.
it's not unusual to have more than one committee member by the same,
I'm trying to think though,
Yeah.
when we redid the ordinance, there was specifics as to each commissioner had so many, and there was different
I'm in
categories.
Steve's district as well.
So much.
You
Yeah,
guys
I
do
was
You're
gonna
in
say-
Steve's.
Did he appoint you or are you
And you're
appointed
in
by the
Steve's.
mayor?
I'm in Steve's
He's in
as well.
Steve's too,
I
but
might have been the mayor, I
you're
don't know.
here as a result of
No, it
originally.
just changed. My
Well,
new letter,
actually-
it said Ben put me on this
Are you-
time, as
But
opposed to, last time I was at large, I was the,
Okay, so Ben appointed you?
But Ben
This time,
appointed
yeah.
me and Jackie.
Okay.
Who knows?
No, you know what, no, my understanding is that the
We're not a
commission,
It happens in
quasi-judicial
different ways.
board, so
I'm
I
here
don't think
by way
that,
of bad.
Oh, yeah?
See, Steve appointed me on bad, but then bad sends me here.
I don't think so anymore. That was
Are
the
you the
first, that was
representative?
the first group.
yeah.
The first group had dedicated people from organizations. I
Yeah,
was
I
here
was-
from the council.
I was
You
here
were
from
here
the
from the-
chamber.
Who
Okay.
appointed you?
I believe it's Ben.
Yeah, I know Ben appointed me. You think Ben appointed you?
The letter I just got,
The
Oh, you
commission,
just got reappointed?
the commission actually votes.
You know, this is a, why don't you guys check this out? You know, let us know if there's any problems, okay?
I'm gonna assume there's not
We're assuming there's not, but
until
if there
someone
is.
tells me.
You'll get a notice that says thanks for your
You're
service, but
lucky,
we
you're
don't need you
lucky,
anymore.
you're lucky if you get a letter that says thanks for your service.
Hopefully
You know, I
they
saw
drop
Norm
manhole for
Ornstein
your
at a,
Who?
remember Norm, not Ornstein, Norm Ostroff,
Ostrom.
right,
Sewer
at one of the tower forums.
coming in.
And he left unexpectedly. And I had to call up and say, did you at least send the man a letter? You know, saying thank you for your service? You know, finally we got that thing rocking and rolling, but anyway, thank you all for the meeting.
Wait,
Oh, yeah, okay.
The conversation shifted when we were talking about puddles.
Mm-hmm.
But in the neighborhoods, I don't know I doubted it over on Route 1, there could be sea level rise, but in Victoria Park, this time of
20th
year,
Avenue.
it's leaves. And you got all of the lawn maintenance people with the, I call them the urban noisemakers, the leaf blowers, they don't do anything.
Highways, those are outlawed.
No, you
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
You know what it
get a
would cost to
rake.
have somebody come and rake your lawns?
I don't care.
You don't care?
You know what
You're
it-
rich.
more
Not
environmentally
only- not only
friendly
is
to
it
have a rake.
loud, it's filthy,
Other
and it's
people are- other
environmentally
peop-
negative.
Other people
That's
are
right.
rich. Then you give them
You're so
chainsaws
rich,
too,
don't
and
give
we
me
get
that.
hand saws to cut the trees.
But how much
Well, I listened
of,
to that public hearing, it was a
because they
horrible public
don't
hearing.
rake up, they don't get the leaves out of the way, they just move
Blow
them.
Blow 'em around.
Blow the dirt.
Just
Put
kick
more-
'em around.
So,
Take your problem and make it
we-
someone else's.
I mean, we have the street sweepers, and I don't know how, I mean, that's a different department, and I don't know if you know about it or you do, but,
It's one thing we
I
covered.
don't know what the route is, or, I mean, because they're the only ones that will pick that kind of debris, I would think.
No, you missed my point. This time of year, the pin oaks and
Live oaks.
Mahogany.
the mahogany trees, right? It's like snow, right? It's a deluge. That's gotta wind up in the storm system.
The problem are landscape companies that blow, and they blow it in the street and walk away, and they don't rake it up. That's disgusting.
I wish that they would, I wish we would have, I didn't participate in that, but I really wish they would have mandated that these blowers have to be electric.
Yeah,
I
they
think you're
talked about
A
it.
couple of years away from it, where it's viable, but it's good.
That's what I was talking about, the street sweepers, because when they find that debris, they might catch some of it.
Yeah.
You know, I have a
We
tree
have
that's,
street sweepers? I have never seen a street
Yeah,
sweeper in
we
the
do.
city of Fort
But
Lauderdale.
And you gotta have a curb to have a street sweeper.
Yeah, well, that's true,
we do have some.
But is there a program that goes around and cleans out like
Yeah,
the
the-
basins,
Yeah,
the catch
there is a
basins?
program, that's this stormwater operations, they go and they have a schedule of all the different basins that they clean, and I don't know what.
Yeah, per our operator's license, we're required to clean the entire city system once every 5 years. So you take the city, basically break it into five sections, and you're supposed to attack them, you know, essentially one per year, and you start all over again the fifth year.
Is that in the asset management plan?
Well, it would be able to be mapped in the asset management software system,
There you go.
but they already currently, Marie Pearson, our stormwater maintenance team, they do regularly clean the system, and that is one of the things that we're held to, is our NPDES permit requirements.
Yeah,
In
that's-
addition to that, we have hotspots where either are known problem areas, which sounds like this is probably a known problem area, or where we get Q alerts through Lauderdale, or 8288000, where we'll hear about clogged systems that need to be factored and cleaned, and we'll send out crews for that. Generally speaking, though, to the point that was being brought up earlier,
Send it to Ben's office and
all the time that you see these folks out there blowing the leaves around, not bagging them and not trucking them, that's against the law, that's against our code.
That's exactly
So,
right.
and that's our biggest problem, is the code violations that are going on with the landscaping getting in the drainage systems. not only does it clog our system, but it increases the phosphorus and nitrogen.
What
Waterways.
bothers me is a lot of times these guys, they'll do residential apparently and commercial. So they come into the neighborhood and you get these three guys with these gigantic blowers blowing. I hate it.
Would you like to
Public
have,
order.
would you like to have the stormwater operations to give you some kind of mapping or something of what their schedule is? or
I think
the
a schedule would
Be
be
nice,
nice.
I'd like
to
the
know.
schedule, I'd like to see the schedule of where
Let's
they,
get that one on the.
let's put that one on next time.
Yeah, where the problems are.
Right.
I mean, where
And
they-
they probably not, I mean, I don't know exactly.
Program,
everything
plan,
they do.
map.
And what are the,
And how do they address it?
okay, me and then you?
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
One of the, one of the things we talked about last month was the fact that we're not getting any more sidewalks out of the penny sales tax, which leaves all the sidewalks on us. And we were gonna talk about the sidewalk budget, in relation to that. Let's put that on next week, next month?
Are you looking
Talk about
for a discussion about connecting the blocks, increasing the mileage of sidewalks?
Fixing
New
the ones we
sidewalks.
have.
Or
Well,
fixing- or both?
fixing the ones we have, to Gerald's question, we didn't really get into a deep discussion about that. But it also, we started talking about, well, now since there were a lot of sidewalk projects that seem to have been pushed over into the surtax and now have been pushed off of the surtax, what are we gonna do? That leaves all the sidewalks for us, and we have a woefully small budget for sidewalks. Yes, Jackie?
Another
I'm-
topic, if I could,
Yes.
unless we're not done with that.
One more topic.
Well, there was a huge payout on the liability too for the sidewalk.
Yeah, there was a
You could
payout.
fund, you could
You
fund
probably-
a department in charge of sidewalks based off of the liability payments, avoidance
Right.
of.
I have two questions. Last month, I inquired about what percentage of the water from the 5-ash water treatment plant is unaccounted for. Typically, I think I mentioned on a regular system that's kept up their system is something like
You mean like
5%.
the NRW, not new revenue water?
Beg pardon?
That you're talking about the NRW, not revenue water?
Right, in other words,
The water that
unmetered
is lost in the
water.
system.
And so that we could figure out.
We have a
lot of-
number.
A lot of the old cast iron water mains are leaking and it's not apparent.
Yeah.
And so it's,
So
that was one.
they keep a record of that, and they have a number, a percent, so we could get that from operations.
And that, if you map that against the amount of money we've been spending on the I&I program?
Well, that's different, this is for water.
This is water.
Oh,
Water.
water.
This is unaccounted for water, like, I noticed that we had a chlorination treatment in there, and I didn't really notice any fire hydrants flowing at the extremity areas where they normally do to flush out some of the nitrification and stuff like that.
They might have, and you probably didn't notice, because they do.
I just don't hit the right neighborhoods.
Right.
Jackie?
And the
Yeah,
other,
Okay.
second question I have is, can we get some kind of indication on the the sanitary sewer, the old vitrified clay pipe areas, the basins that are a schedule on when they're going to be going? And I'd like to look at that relative to the decrease in the water going to the Lomar wastewater
That's what I was
plant.
thinking
What's
about.
done and what's not done.
Yeah.
Right, what's done, what's not done, and then we hopefully will see that the extra infiltration water going to Lomar is coming down. It used to be like 30 to 40, even in the rainy season, 50%, which is hard to believe, but maybe not.
It's not hard to believe.
So the way that it is right now is that you can see a decrease on the basins that have been lined, but other basins, the total flow is kind of hard to correlate, because when you have heavy rains, the basins that are good, you don't have any I&I, but the other basins that are not good, you get more water in, and it goes through
Yeah,
the
but
whole
you
Yeah,
can
but you
probably
can-
tell by the longer run times on the pump stations.
We know that the run times on the pump station have decreased on the basins that we lined. And I think Hazen did a presentation on that a while back.
And we didn't-
So, this goes to the idea of the fact that we've been here since 2017, okay?
Right.
And a lot has happened, and maybe a lot needs to be more documented. For instance, in those basins that you just said that we've worked on for the past 7 years, it would be good to show a chart of the pumps running less and less in those basins to show that it works, that the money was well spent and it works.
Or just what's done. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that
That would
there's
be-
been
We
big
do
neighborhoods.
have that data.
Big neighborhoods that have basically Victoria Park, I always use an example because I know it, but it's an entirely new water and sewer system.
We do have that data, so,
Mm-hmm.
do you want like a map with the basins showing
Yeah, the map of basins that we've done and the next couple of basins on the line.
Be wonderful.
And bigger than a 6 font, so we can read it.
Right. And also those numbers that show the number of the pump stations in the good places have gone down over, since, something to prove to people. People don't understand.
That's the run times.
The runtime,
Yeah,
something
the
to
run
prove
times
to
is-
people that all that money was well spent
Right.
and it's good.
It's important.
Okay, Jackie.
Does anybody have an update, because it is infrastructure, we did take a position on it at one time, what's going on with the tunnel versus the bridge through the city with FDOT? Does
I've not
anybody
heard
have an
of
All
update
gone
on
to
that?
the county.
Haggling.
Haggling
Lots
still?
of haggling.
Okay,
And lots of, the DDA's working to try to, we have lobbyists that are on our payroll.
yeah,
They're starting to try to find money as an alternate, because I think the whole argument of the county was, don't hold this up. Because you've got all the county commissioners that wanna see stations in their districts. And so we as a city are trying to say, hey, look, we can help find the money to where this is not a huge ad. So the DDA's got lobbyists in Tallahassee and we're working DC, to see if we can help to find the money to not have to go to the bridge.
you're the chairman of DDA, right?
Not this year, Steve Hudson's the chair.
Okay,
I'm still a board member, but he's the chair.
so basically, the city's position is still, we do not want a bridge, correct?
Correct.
And the what's his name that controls the money, the penny sales tax, Greg?
Yeah.
They're still not gonna move anything forward
Stewart.
unless we're in sync, correct?
Yep.
Because
Well,
it's
that's
a
what they
failure.
say, that's
It's
what
a
they
failure.
say.
Well, yeah, it's a failure though.
But one area that the city has leverage on that I'm hearing rumors about is that if you're gonna build a city-county joint campus, how's that work with a bridge right next to it?
Oh, please, that's silly. I
Well,
mean,
it's leverage,
I've
it's
seen,
leverage,
yeah, but I've
it's
seen
leverage.
buildings with trains
Well,
going right
I
through them and
just,
they look
you know,
great.
It's leverage,
Yeah.
it's leverage.
All right,
okay,
you
so
know,
that's
let me
still-
just, let me comment a little bit on that. My civic association voted against the tunnel for the bridge, okay? And the
We won't hold it
reason,
against you.
no, that's okay, well, it's a democracy. The reason they voted for it is they don't believe there's enough money to build a tunnel. If you can solve that problem,
I'm not solving it,
no,
but
but
I
I'm
think
saying,
there's
if
people
somebody
working
can
to try to
solve the
solve it.
problem,
It's a ridiculous position.
no, it's just a lot of money and people
Well,
wanna
I know,
spend
but if
money
you
other
look at,
ways.
if you look
Well,
at
the
the
city's not
impact of
gonna
it
pay.
today
I couldn't
versus in
convince,
20,
Jackie, I
30
could not
years,
convince them
that's gonna
that
be pennies.
they don't give a damn about 20 or 30 years.
Obviously they don't.
Well, they should,
They only
because
should,
I know, but they
exactly.
don't, people
Think of the
don't care about
billions in
20 or
tax
30
base
years.
that's affected by this.
I know, but they'd rather you solve homelessness,
Well, no, they don't, because they don't want them in their neighborhood.
Yeah, but the solving is not to put them in their neighborhood, is to take them somewhere else. But I'm just saying, the money issue is so
Well,
critical.
sure.
Omar, you want a real
don't find the money
curveball?
unless you have a problem.
You wanna what?
A real curveball?
You want a
Especially this-
curveball?
Especially with engineering, with some of the changes in personnel. The real dirty little secret are dumpster enclosures.
Dumpster enclosures?
Dumpster enclosures have floor drains that go into the sanitary system. That nobody really realizes that, but the city and the county make you hook up, put a grease trap on them to treat anything that's grease-wise, and then they still go into the sanitary system. So when
Wow.
you get a hurricane or you get a high water event, your sanitary system is taking storm drainage right out of floor drains.
So every time it rains, you get a little water in there too.
Yeah, so Dennis's latest solution is to make you raise dumpsters above the floodplain, which isn't
Oh
realistic,
my God.
because now you're gonna need a step ladder
But how much water can go in
in that drain.
Yeah.
It's a 4-inch drain. But the
Drain
interesting
it this
thing is,
way.
they make check valves, and I think there's other cities in the county where they've arranged to have those dumpsters hooked into storm systems, especially if you already have a grease trap. That's something I think the city might wanna look at in the engineering department, and say, is this the most common sense way to handle the water?
But you cannot put it, if you put a check valve in there, you still.
Well, that's the other thing we've thrown out to plan reviews, is put in a check valve, at least you can turn it off in a hurricane event or a high water event, to ameliorate the worst of it. But if you think about it, if you have a grease trap, why aren't you going in the storm system?
Yeah, but if you put a check, if somebody has to turn it on and off,
Yeah, but still, it's not realistic.
How many people are gonna do it?
The county started to want people to put awnings on it, but still, if you have high water, that's not gonna solve it.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing to address.
And you talked to Dennis about it?
You know Dennis. Dennis is the one saying raise it above the floodplain, which is, how do you do that when you got next to a street that's got a finished floor elevation of 4?
Okay, and two more questions.
Let me ask you this, what's, if you can, divulge what the status is on the P3 for the 5-ash?
So we are working on an interim agreement right now for them to come to the well field and do some preliminary boring where the building is gonna be, to make sure that it, you know, that is suitable for putting a building there and all that. They're also looking at some of the wells and relocating, but that's about it. We're still working. And that interim agreement is going to commission tomorrow, right? So, once that gets approved, then they can start that, and we're also working right now on the comprehensive agreement. And I'm not sure, that's probably gonna be a few months down the road. But this is just for them to start moving on.
Just
the sand
curious,
issues.
I just wanted to.
So, God forgive me, I asked this question. In the interim agreement, what are we liable for if they pull out after the interim agreement? Let's say they go and they do their borings, they say, not good.
We wouldn't
What
be
are we in-
liable.
Why
What
would
are
we
we
be
up-
liable?
I don't know, sometimes in these interim agreements,
It's almost like a disclosure in interim agreement, right? I
Maybe
mean,
the
we're gonna
cost
let
of
you.
the
really,
borings.
the,
We're
maybe
gonna
the,
let
you drill.
we could probably be up for could possibly be up for the cost of the borings. I don't know what's in the interim agreement.
Well, this is just for them, if they go on the site and there is an accident, or they have to have some kind of
We
liability.
do have
Yeah.
to.
So that's what this
Yeah,
is
well,
for.
that makes sense.
But you're right, I mean, if they do the borings and they go and put a building here,
And trust me, they're not gonna say that. They're gonna say you need pilings or you need a specific.
that's
Right,
that's
and it's
kind
gonna
of,
cost
they
more
have to
than we
figure
said it
out
was
what they
gonna
need to
cost.
do.
Yeah.
In
you
that
know,
area,
so.
I doubt you're gonna, I doubt that.
So,
area.
All right.
Fine.
so if it all goes south, then RFPs?
No, we lost that one. Moving on,
That's not
James.
happening, Ralph.
James,
One question that came to me when Ralph was talking, and you mentioned the term non-revenue water, NRW. Water that goes to city swimming pools and splash ponds and that, how is that, is that costed anywhere, or? how
Yeah,
does
that is, I mean, you mean for a resident to use it for?
Not for a resident, no, like the new
Public
aquatic
wells.
center, filling that with thousands and thousands of gallons. Who pays for the water?
I'm
It doesn't
sure
get
They're
charged?
all on metered connections.
They're all meter
There
connections.
are
So-
meters.
So
Yeah.
then facilities, whether it be parks or whoever, will have to pay
Right.
for as part of the
Parks,
facility
yeah.
management.
So if Croissant Park has a water playground, they pay for the water?
Yeah, they do, out of
Parks and
their
Rec.
budget.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when we finish early. We have all these
We
questions.
do something
We
interesting.
should not have any more
We do
questions.
something
No, but at least
interesting.
we got all the other important stuff out of the way, right?
That's right.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. See you all in
Thank you.
June.
Welcome to District 1.
Thank you, Ralph.